A senior tank officer explains Iraq's intention in the sector.
But why we advanced, if you ask me why we advanced to this distance inside Iran? We advanced to this distance to force Iran to recognize that Zain al-Qaws, Saif Saad and Shatt al-Arab is Iraqi according to the laws, according to the rules, according to the international behavior.
But you will be holding on to this Qasr Shireen sector until the Iranians acknowledge that Zain al-Qaws and the others are yours.
Right. We don't want Qasr Shireen. It is Iranian. We are just coming here to force them to recognize that and to be reasonable enough to see that they cannot do and they cannot have it there all the time.
Now, the Islamic Revolution has been replaced by the ruthless Arab socialism of President Saddam Hussein. Destruction in the area was limited to the local Iranian radio and TV station, not destroyed in the fighting, but deliberately demolished afterwards by Iraqi engineers. They blew it up, they say, as a penalty for the anti-Iraq propaganda it had been transmitting across the frontier. With anxiety over oil supplies mounting, I spoke to Iraq's Foreign Minister, Dr. Sa'dun Hammadi. In this exclusive interview, I first asked him about Iraq's demands.
Our position is this. There is an international border between us and Iran, well recognized and defined in 1913, 1914. There are more than 250 landmarks which have been done mutually in 1975. There are maps, official maps, signed and agreed by both of us. Now, what falls on our side of these lands should be ours. What falls on the other side, it is theirs. All we want is that they recognize officially that these lands are Iraqi lands on the land frontier. Second, Shatt al-Arab is definitely and absolutely an Iraqi river. We accept no Talwik or any other river. It has been always, since the dawn of history, an Iraqi river. Third, we would like to see that Iran makes pledge, an agreement, workable agreement, that they would not interfere in our internal affairs in any way, and that security and peace is maintained on our border. Now, if these are recognized with goodwill by Iran, we will not stay in any territory, Iranian territory.
But the real question is surely this. By the agreement of 1913, the Iraqi border is on the right bank of the Shatt al-Arab. The Iraqi army now is in occupation of a great deal of territory on the right bank. Are you prepared to withdraw to the western bank?
I told you what we want from Iran. If they are ready to guarantee these points which I mentioned, we have no claim or no ambition in any Iranian territory at all. We have just said that, definitely.
So the Iraqi army will withdraw from the east bank of the Shatt al-Arab?
Certainly.
Do you foresee the Iranians in their present state and in their present mood agreeing to any of that?
Well, I really can't speak for them. But from our experience, what we see in Iran is almost a lack of a government. We can't see a government that really looks after the real interest of the country, a government that's responsible, that can speak sense. At any rate, I know what you mean. It is very difficult to come to understanding with the present regime in Iran, but this is up to them. This is up to them. If they would like to establish peace, we are ready. If not, they bear the consequences.
And the consequences are what?
Well, we have to do something to make them to come to sense. We tried peacefully, we were unsuccessful. We have to do it this way, and they have to come to sense. All what we ask is what I told you.
Would you like to see the Iranian regime overthrown?
That's up to them. We don't interfere in their internal affairs. If the Iranian people would like this regime, it's okay. If they don't, it's okay. It is none of our policy really to overthrow or change a regime in Iran. We are an unallied country. But if you ask me what is this regime is doing, I think it's ruining Iran. This regime is leading Iran to a catastrophe.
And was it not a likely and perhaps planned effect of the war, from your point of view, that it might encourage the Iranians to remove that regime?
The Iranian regime was in chaos much before that. This is just an outcome, not a cause.
Minister, we are now in the second week of major hostilities between your country and Iran. What do you feel at the moment are the prospects for a ceasefire?
Well, from what I hear in the news, the Iranians are still are not accepting a ceasefire, but I think eventually they have to accept it. I don't know when. It all depends on them.
Ceasefire or surrender?
I can't say that it is a ceasefire or a surrender, but I'm saying is that we are ready to talk and negotiate with the Iranians if they are ready to accept the points which I mentioned.
But they have to accept those conditions in advance of any ceasefire.
Those are not conditions. They would be conditions if we are asking a territory, an Iranian territory. It is not a condition. All we are saying is that they should recognize our legal frontiers, that the lands which are Iraqi lands should go back to Iraq. Is that a condition? That's not a condition. That's absolutely our right and our to preserve the territorial integrity of our country.
So put another way, they have to acknowledge your rights
Yes.
before there's a ceasefire.
Absolutely.
And if they don't acknowledge those rights, how long can Iraq continue prosecuting this war?
We have all the ability to go on. I don't think they have the same ability to go on as we are.
I asked the Iraqi foreign minister what he had to say to the big powers.
There is one thing that we would like to say to the big powers. That is not to interfere in the area in any way, to keep away. Not to interfere directly or indirectly. This has been always what we wanted from the big powers.
Are you confident that Iraq and the smaller Arab countries in the Gulf will be able, though, to maintain security for what are, after all, vital interests, vital economic interests for the West?
Yes, definitely. After all, who is threatening our independence? If it is a country in the region, we should be able to deal with that. But if it is a big power coming and interfering in the area, then the other big power would use that as a pretext for its own interference, and we get in the vicious circle.
There were those, of course, who saw the vicious circle beginning with the Soviet intervention in Afghanistan, that this was a move that, in many ways, it was suggested, directly threatened the Gulf. Now, what's your view of that?
The interference, the military interference of the Soviet Union in Afghanistan was a move which we had a position of. We said our position, we stated our position.
You were opposed to it?
Yes. But we also said that it should not be used as a pretext for an American interference in the area. it should not be used as a cover for a military coming back by the United States in the area. Apparently, the United States is not listening. They are spending efforts to come back in sort of naval and military facilities in Oman and Somalia. We believe that would, instead of coping with the situation, that would only aggravate the situation.
With the collapse of Iran as a military power, don't you foresee Iraq playing a larger role in the security of this region?
We are not involved in the security of regions in the way people speak about in the Western press. We have security responsibilities for the Arab countries. I don't know what do you mean by the region. Iran is responsible for its own security. Every country is responsible for its own national security. If there is any collective security which Iraq is a part of, that's the Arab collective security. Otherwise, I really don't know what is meant by regional security.
Well, we're obviously referring to the Gulf, and your plans to expand the Iraqi Navy, for instance, surely suggest a rather larger role within the Gulf waters, within...
To protect our independence, to protect the independence of the Arab homeland, so that we would not have a second case of the 3 islands. You know, the Shia just came and occupied the 3 islands. No one could do anything. It's part of our homeland. He just occupied that. We don't like to have such a situation repeated again.
So you are saying, then, Minister, that there has been a decisive shift in the balance of power in this area. If you have no intention of ever letting that sort of thing happen again.
We would like to protect the independence of Iraq. Any other Arab country on the Arabian Gulf, if its independence is threatened and we are asked to assist, we will assist. We feel that is our responsibility. That's the only responsibility we have in the area.
That you would come to the aid of any smaller Arab country in the Gulf, for instance?
Yes.
Whether it had a military problem with Iran or any other country?
If it is an Arab country, no. A foreign country, yes.
And in this region, that is likely, surely, to be the Iranians principally, isn't it?
It has been for the last 500 years. The threat always came from Iran.